Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Build America, the construction industry podcast that is capturing and sharing the important news of the day in trends, people, projects, places, and issues. And today we're just really blessed to have another speaker in our Q1 2026 series on mental health in the construction industry. I'm Kerry Smith, and I am owner of Build America podcast and Construction News and Review magazine. Thank you for joining us. Today we have Vince Hafeli, who is very well known in the mental health industry and particularly in construction. And Vince is here with us to talk through the topic of mental health and leadership, how to differentiate your organization. And Dr. Vince Hafeli is a nationally recognized leader in mental health advocacy. He's got over 40 years of industry experience, and he oversees a team of 600 with roles that include, through the years, field and laboratory quality control technician, project manager, and certainly an executive leader. And I've enjoyed him on the TEDx events and TED Talks as well. Welcome, Dr. Vince Hafeli. We're so glad to have you with us on Build America.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure thing. Excited to dive into this topic. It's been clear to me as we had the opportunity to learn from different experts in the mental health field that every single person that I've spoken to and learned from has a personal tie to the industry or something that they experienced with their family, their friends, or a coworker that really ignited their passion for this topic. And I wondered if you would mind just sharing with us what that connection is for you.
Oh, that goes deep.
Okay.
No,
What you're comfortable with, what you're
no,
comfortable
that's fine. I've shared it. So everywhere I'll share it here. It began, I went back to the University of South Florida in January of 2021 to work on my doctorate degree, where I wanted to research leadership, mid-level leadership in construction organizations. And 6 months into the program, I was told by one of the professors that was a pretty weak topic to go find something more meaningful.
Wow.
He told me they did that in the medical industry. Why great physicians don't make great hospital administrators. I wanted to study how we take great equipment operators and set them up for success. And he told me, go study what the medical field did and rewrite it for your industry and you'll be done. So
Wow.
he challenged me, and that was good because his challenge greatly changed my life. It led me to meet a lot of phenomenal people and allowed me to do a lot of things for the industry that I have been part of since 1985. So I went back to him a week or two later and said, how about suicide in the construction industry? And he asked why. And I began to relay some of the numbers to him that I had learned a couple of months earlier when I was writing a paper for a topic over in India. And he was shocked to learn that as construction and mining extraction, that we had the highest industry sector in the U.S., and construction is the second highest industry, and how many people we lose. And currently it's 14 to 18 a day to suicide. So I began to relay those numbers to him, and he said that would be powerful. If you go back to 2007, probably a half mile from where I'm sitting here right now, I'm in Venice, Florida, in our corporate office. I came out here one night and was going to end my own life. That's where I
Oh,
came to be finished. And I got a telephone call just minutes before that happened that turned me around and sent me back home. So from that night in 2007 until July 16th of 2021, only 3 people ever knew of that night, and that was myself, what became my ex-wife, and my son. And so for 14 years, I never got talked about.
wow.
And after my meeting with that professor in June of 21 to talk about this, and he said that would be great, on July 16th of 21, sitting in this same building here, I told 16 of our department heads about that night. And again, I hadn't talked about that to anyone for 14 years. I hadn't planned to that day, and I can't tell you why I did. I just suddenly felt right and felt like it was time to do it. And I soon learned my view that people in this industry are harsh, tough, and would laugh at you and golf at you. I learned that they're actually pretty compassionate. Most, some are still standoffish about that, and I get it and understand. So that then opened the door to where I began the research. And then I had the idea in February of 22 to do this national proclamation to get industry leaders from across America and some national as well as international companies and trade associations to sign a proclamation saying begin having discussions about mental health and awareness and suicide awareness in the organizations. And from there, the invites began to come in. I've been invited to over 100 places nationally, internationally to talk to companies, sometime to 2,000 people at a safety event, sometime to 10 people in a room and everything in between. And I've seen a great change in our industry, partly because of people like Brandon Anderson and Mandy Holmes. I mean, it's just a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot of people. There's a handful of people that are doing things around this, but the pool of people is beginning to grow and companies are really beginning to be receptive and open up. So I think there's hope in the future. This isn't going to change overnight, but I think there's hope.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing such a personal story, and good on you for being vulnerable. And I'm sure helping others more than you'll ever know by sharing that. I wanted to point out to our listeners, I should have at the start, that you had Ajax Paving Company, correct? Are you the president or the CEO of that? So you're very much still immersed in the industry. It's not that you were in construction. You continue to, your full-time job is in that role.
Yeah, I'm the president of Ajax Paving Industries in Florida. Yep.
Because I think some have either been in construction or in construction now, and then maybe segged into the mental health advocacy role. But you're really on two parallel tracks at the same time. You're running a large company and you're advocating for mental health.
I work for a very gracious owner, Mike Curran, that is the CEO and owns Ajax, Florida, him and his family. He's been very gracious in buying me a lot of airline tickets and hotel rooms and Uber rides and encouraging me to go and make a difference. In part, we've lost employees in our company. Some recent. We lost an employee about 5 weeks ago to suicide. We lost one
So
about
sorry.
17 months ago. We lost Mark in 15, I guess it was. We've had them here as well.
Wow, it really hits home. And that statistic that you identified, about 14 to 18 suicides a day, I'm assuming in this country, is so shocking. And peeling back the layers of the onion, though, to see when people are exhausted, perhaps isolated, and working in a hazardous job day after day, I could see where it could become very unhealthy emotionally and mentally if they don't have the support group at work and at home to be equipped to deal with that. You're speaking and you mentioned about leadership, where leadership intersects with mental health advocacy, and I wondered if you could share with our audience the different levels perhaps of leaders, who we would ascribe the role of leadership when it comes to equipping people to be mentally healthy in the construction workplace. Who are we talking about? The C-suite? Are we talking about the trades leader, or the project manager, or the specialty sub that's there for the day? Who should be advancing that leadership and exemplifying it?
When I did my doctoral research at USF, I did qualitative research and I did qualitative interviews of industry leaders from across the country in all different aspects of construction. And there was only one thing that 100% of the respondents agreed upon. Every one of them said that for them to be successful, and this being a mental health initiative in an organization, it had to begin in the C-suite. Got to begin with the owner, the CEO, the CFO, president, whatever that looks like in your company, whether it's a large company or a small family company. Some of those companies said that they had originally rolled it out in their company, and the owner or the C-suite said, Sounded like a great initiative. Here you go, HR. Here you go, safety. Run with it. And it failed. And we did a relaunch to where the owners of the company, the C-suite, stood behind it. And that doesn't mean they got to be the one to talk about it every day, but they got to be the one that carry the message. They got to support it at safety events. They got to support it if they go out and do toolbox talks. So that's the only, of all the questions I asked, that's the only one that they all agreed upon. So it's got to begin with the C-suite. I mean, that's how we began it at Ajax. It was with me standing on a stage at a safety day on January 3rd of 22, telling everyone in the company we were going to begin this journey. A couple of months later, we established a team we called the Ajax Warrior Team. And then we got our VPs and executive VPs to buy into it and begin talking about it. And some do it more prominently than others. But it still has got to continue at the top.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, Vince. And I would think too, it needs to work its way on down, because if you're on a job site and you're a coworker, you have to know the benchmark for your coworkers to know if something seems a little bit off, because a lot of people still do, especially in the construction industry, hold their hurts close to their vest. And I would think you've got to know to recognize that something's not right. You have to know the baseline for that person's mental health.
And how does the average person know that? 'Cause you're not taught that in school. You're not taught it unless you go and specialize it in college. What we did is anyone in our company that manages people, we require that they get Vital Cog trained. Vital Cog's a 2-hour construction industry specific about what to look for, what question to ask, what signs to look for. I think it's through the University of Colorado, it's the black and gold one. We now have an in-house trainer. So if you supervise people, you get that. And then we have our warrior team. The warrior team is about 10% of the company. It's purely voluntary. If you want to be on that team or don't want to be on the team, there's no pressure, there's no extra pay. You do get together each quarter and get to have a lunch and listen to a keynote speaker and spend some time people that they're really like benefit. But the warriors are sprinkled throughout the company. We have MOT foremen that are warriors, the president's warrior, people in the office. We got paving foremen that are warriors. So that gives people at all different levels in the company someone to go and talk to. Because if you're on a paving crew here in Venice, Florida, and if Chris, the MOT foreman, and you know he's a warrior, you're more apt to go and talk to Chris than you are to want to make a trip to the office to talk to the president. So the warrior program has been strong for us, and it's morphed into more than just the mental health piece. People can ask questions about, hey, I'm struggling to pay my power bill, and Eric will hook you up with a nonprofit in Tampa that will help you figure out how to get your power bill paid that month. So anything we can do to try to help people and take some pressure off of them and give them a place to talk is really what the Warriors is about.
Oh, how great is that? You mentioned a 2-hour training. I didn't catch the name of it. Was that the one you said was associated with the University of Colorado?
Vital Cog, VITAL COG, construction specific. So we believe in that. And like I said, we have someone now in-house that's certified to do that. So it's not a big expense to companies. It's not a lot of time for companies. It's a 2-hour training program. Because you hear so many people that want to put excuses on why you can't do things. It takes time and it takes money. I'm telling you, it doesn't take much money at all. And it does take a little bit of time. But we have a lot of equipment. We have a lot of plants. We have a lot of assets. It's cost a lot of money. But the biggest asset in our company are our people.
Amen.
You and I could go buy a lot of yellow iron in an asphalt plant today and put up a construction company, and we might be bankrupt in a couple of months. But if we put the right people with us, we might be around for 20 years. So it's all about the people.
Yeah, really well said. And on the subject of the people, you mentioned, I think in one of your talks, that leader, and I might not get this exactly right, so please jump in, but how leadership is a privilege and it's like an opportunity to influence people, and it's you have to check your egos at the door to be effective.
I think the best leaders, in my opinion, are like servant leaders.
Yes.
You're not. I had someone here a few months ago. I said, "Why do you want to be the president of that company?" And they didn't have an answer. And I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, "Well, you probably shouldn't be the president."
Yeah.
And so he turned it back on to me and he said, "Why do you want to be the president?" And I said, "It wasn't ever about money. It wasn't ever about power because I had all the things I needed. And I didn't even know if I would get a raise when I became the president." I said, "I always wanted to be the president because I wanted to take care of the blue collar workers because I was one of those for many years. And I wanted to lead the industry better than I did and try to make the industry better for those people." So to me, it was about really trying to elevate people. It wasn't about trying to elevate myself.
Oh, so well said. I know that with your TEDx and your other events, you do go into detail on this suicide and construction awareness proclamation. And I wanted to see if you could share like a website address or some way people, if there are companies listening that would like to become part of that and roll out that proclamation at their company, where would they go for more information?
That's a good question. I think it is still on the American Road and Transportation Builders website, which
Okay.
is ARTBA, ARTBA. It's artba.org. I think it's still on their website. The honest answer is I had the big aspirations for how many people I wanted to get to sign it and probably didn't come anywhere close to that. But what I really got out of the proclamation was a lot of the people that signed that, the organization that day, are now doing things in their organization. Vinci America is doing stuff all across the US, everywhere they're at. But it really opened up a lot of doors for me to get in to place and to talk to people. I, right there is the proclamation.
Oh, okay. For those on
Well,
YouTube, you see that on the wall. Yeah.
so some of the people that signed it was Dave Bauer, the president of ARTBA, was there that day. Jim Ward, the president and CEO of Martin Marietta Aggregates, the secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation. So
Wow.
there were a lot of, I was honored and very fortunate that a lot of people that I asked that day came. But there were a lot of people that I asked to come that refused. They didn't refuse, they just didn't accept the invitation. But there's a couple of those companies within the last 2 years have called and say, "We wish we would have came because
Yeah.
we've lost someone to suicide. And would you come and talk to our company?"
Yeah, that's gotta be one of the most tragic situations. I know we mentioned Brandon Anderson, the who serves as co-chair of the National Health and Safety Task Force for AGC of America, and also is the safety head at AGC Missouri. But Brandon, the day that I called him to ask for lists of potential podcast guests and subject matter experts, he was on his way to Indiana to a company he had tried to get to open the doors earlier because he knew that it was a toxic culture. And he was making that trip exactly as you said, after a few days after the unthinkable. And gosh, we've got to get to people before, don't we, to educate.
What I think is important for business owners, leaders to understand is, yeah, this is a difficult topic, right? Yeah, this is a topic that nobody wants to talk about, but it will really differentiate your organization. You will find that it really, if I go back to the past August, the Saturday before Labor Day, in the evening, I think it was like 7:28 in the evening, one of my employees called me. And when he called, for the first 10 minutes, I couldn't understand a word he was saying because he was just hysterically crying.
Oh,
And when we got off the phone an hour and 10 minutes later, or whatever it was, we were both laughing. And
mm,
in the course of the conversation, he said, "I know we have all the tools in our employee assistance program and all the places we can call, but I didn't want to call them because I didn't want to talk to a stranger. You've always treated me like a son, so I wanted to talk to you.
mm.
And if that doesn't mean more to you as an owner than going and picking up $1 million job, then maybe you shouldn't be an owner. Because again, those people make the difference. And early on, when we began the program here at Ajax in Florida, I stood on a stage in Orlando, Florida, the Asphalt Expo, in front of a bunch of my competitors that I'm friends with. We all hate each other on bid day, but after bid day, we're all friends. And that
Exactly.
day on the stage, I told them, I said, well, I've had an agreement with you guys that, hey, I won't hire your guys if you don't hire my guys. I said, but today I'm going to stand here and tell you that agreement ends, because I'm tired of your people coming to me and saying, we want to work for you because of the culture you've created and how you're taking care of your people. So if you don't want your people coming to me, then go back and change your culture. And those companies
Wow.
did, and those companies did. And I can name some of those companies, and I won't, but I can. They asked me to come and speak to their companies, and I did. Again, they're competitors, but there's only 12 days a year we don't like each other.
That's so fantastic. And just mental health knows no boundaries. There's no competitive nature. You want to share what people need to hear and what they need to, don't you?
Younger people are open and expect to talk about mental health. And if you don't want to create a culture in your company where they can, then they're going to find an industry where they can.
Mm.
But the second question, I'll, I'll jump in here before you ask another one, but I asked when I did my interviews is, when I say mental health, what comes to mind? And most people couldn't give an answer or didn't want to give an answer or would tell me, what, bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. And I'd finish the interview and I'd turn off the tape recorder and I'd say, hey, I want to explain to you, you never answered my mental health question. Yeah, I did. I told you what it was. No, you didn't. You explained to me what mental illness is. You never answered what mental health is. And I think that's what scares a lot of people in this industry, because when you talk about someone's having a mental health struggle, they immediately think they're crazy, or,
Yeah.
they've got the bipolar, or they have something. I was just talking to one of my employees before the podcast, and he's having a tough time right now. And he's just going through some mental struggles, some finance issues, just different things. And just because someone is struggling mentally doesn't mean that they're bipolar or schizophrenic or have depression or have anxiety. It just means they're going through something. And we should want our employee to come to us, particularly in this industry, and tell us that they're having a struggle. Because if you got a guy that on the way to work today learned something, maybe he learned his wife just called and said, hey, I just got the call and I found out I have breast cancer. Or, hey, I just got the call and we found out dad has dementia. Just something that is making him be off a little bit mentally. I didn't say he's mentally ill. I didn't say he's psychotic, but he's thinking about that call he got. Don't you want him to show up and say, maybe I shouldn't be setting that bridge beam over the interstate today? Maybe you should have somebody else drive the crane today, or maybe we should wait a day, or maybe you need to give me an hour or 2 hours. Because in our industry, we lose 2 to 3 workers a day to job-related injuries, right? Trench collapse, electrocution, fall from height, whatever that may be, 14 to 18 to suicide. But I'm convinced that we could reduce the 2 to 3 if we encourage people to say, I'm having a struggle today. Because maybe that guy that fell off of a high rise that he was building was thinking about the phone call he got and he didn't realize how close he'd got to the edge. Or maybe that guy that swung a trench box around and hit somebody in the trench and killed them or greatly injured them. Maybe he was thinking about that call he got today. So I think what people need to understand, that we want to talk about mental health positively, just like we talk about physical safety positively. When we talk about physical safety, yeah, we think about the injuries and we think about the things that have happened, but we also think about what can we do to prevent these in the future. Or around the mental illness piece and the mental health piece, the mind goes straight to the negative, and for most people never leaves the negative. So we need to we want to make our physical safety improved. We need to make our mental health improved, because everyone that's struggling from a mental health issue today is not mentally ill. And if they are mentally ill, not everybody that's going through some type of mental illness is like my father told me, and they're going to lock you up and put you away in a mental institution. Sometimes people that are going through mental illness, I tell people it's like you can have a good ankle, you can have a sprained ankle, you can have a broken ankle, or you can have a decapitated ankle. And they're all physical injuries, but they're all different. You can have great mental health today, great. If you maybe you're bipolar and maybe today you're taking your meds and you're really done well, or maybe you're not taking your meds and you're not doing well. So how do we get all those not wells back to the well end of the spectrum? The person that decapitated their ankle, we're never going to get them back, but we can move the needle and help them somehow, just like the people that maybe need meds. I think there's this big view that everybody that's going through mental illness need to be medicated or locked away, or maybe both. And I would have told you that I never suffered from any mental illness, but when I was doing my research, one of the professors encouraged me to go talk to a counselor, and I did. And on the second meeting, she looked at me and told me, you suffer from depression, anxiety, AD, and you're controlling. And I told her I've never been any of the things, so I don't have a clue what you're talking about. But I went back and read about some of them, and she was right. I have suffered from mental illness and depression. The others, I don't know about. The controlling one, I guess I didn't get to where I'm at in my career without being controlling. But depression just really means that for more than 14 days in a row, something has changed in your activity and behaviors. On day 15, maybe for 2 weeks, you've not been able to sleep, or maybe you sleep too much, or you can't eat, or maybe you eat too much. And if you've done, that means you're going through a stage of depression. And I said a stage. It doesn't mean you got to be locked away or medicated like my dad said, but maybe you need a brother to talk to. I lost my brother when I was 31. I didn't have him anymore. Maybe you need a father to talk to. I lost my father when I was 27. I didn't have him to talk to anymore. So I got to where I was in 2007 because I believed what my father told me, that you got to be a man, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. Don't share your emotions, don't share your feelings. When I came to work in this industry, they told me, leave your problems outside, don't bring them in here. We got enough problems of our own. So I didn't tell you how I got there in 07. In May of 89, I learned my brother was terminally ill. 2 months later, my father died. 4 months later, my wife and I lost our twin sons. And then my brother died, and then my mother died. And I didn't ever talk about that or share it with anyone because you're not supposed to. So I didn't. And it weighed on me until finally, from 89 until 07, that's when I was going to end my life. So we just got to, people have to understand that there's positive mental health, and it's not all about mental illness.
No, excellent point. Oh gosh, thank you for
Sorry,
sharing
I
all
went down a rabbit hole there.
No, that's been so important, and we could talk to you all afternoon. I definitely would love to have you on another episode. For today, we've been talking with Dr. Vince Hafeli, who is president at Ajax Paving, and he is down in Florida, but he is also just a dedicated speaker on how to just make sure people are having a positive sense of well-being and what that means, and how companies can make their leadership supportive and approachable so that these principles can be lived out and everyone can go home safely at the end of the day. Vince, it's been such a privilege to have you on Build America, and I hope that you will come back and see us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.